Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, the show presented by FanDuel. And guess who's back? It's Jeremiah Sirles. All right, Jeremiah, you have returned from Indianapolis at the NFL Combine, where you met with NFL teams, you chatted with all sorts of folks around the National Football League, and so did NFL insiders about the Vikings quarterback situation. I counted up 7 different quarterbacks that insiders
Mm.
connected to the Minnesota Vikings, and that actually doesn't include Anthony Richardson, so let's call it 8 different quarterbacks. When you walked out of Indy, who did you think was going to play quarterback for the Vikings in 2026?
No idea. I mean, absolutely no clue. You heard reports. I mean, I saw something this morning too that was like, well, Daniel Jones is still out there. And you're like, wait, what? We're still talking about this? And then it was everything from Tua to Kyler to Gino to Kirk. And you're just like, this is maybe the worst game of Russian roulette quarterback that we could ever play with, because I don't love any of these guys going forward that you can pinpoint and go, yeah, that guy's going to come in and right the ship. And there's flaws that you can point to in every single one of those guys' games that I just look around. I go, I don't love this at all, and I am very sorry because I definitely owe you a big fat milkshake from our bets. If those who follow Tuesday Morning Left Guard, I said they go all in on McCarthy, and boy was I wrong. So I owe you a milkshake. We will get that scheduled soon.
Well, it does seem that you're not wrong yet, because I think we kind of framed it as, starting quarterback 2026, that, we don't know how this is going to end up playing out. And the other thing that could happen is that some of these teams could just keep their quarterbacks that we've talked about as being
Mhm.
available. And Geno Smith is one of those, where if you are the Las Vegas Raiders and you feel like you don't want to play Fernando Mendoza right away, which I think is a smart idea for the Raiders, can you get someone that's going to be better than Geno Smith to start 2/3 of the season, kind of the way Jacoby Brissett
Yeah.
did for New England with Drake May? And even with Kyler Murray's situation, it's not a guarantee of the century that a team won't come in at the very last minute and be like, okay, we'll give you a seventh and we'll work out something with his salary cap hit so we get him instead of him signing for $1 million with Minnesota or whatever. There's so many moving parts to this that nobody can really make a guarantee. But I think that there's an interesting part of it. The other layer is how they feel about JJ McCarthy. At the combine, Kevin O'Connell talked a lot about McCarthy's traits and the different traits that he had
Mhm.
shown, but also nobody counted out the fact that they might just go out and get a starting quarterback when Rob Brzezinski says all options are on the table. Do you think that the way that they're approaching this is fair to JJ McCarthy?
Absolutely. And the reason I say that is from a guy that played in the NFL, you're only as good as your last at bat. You can't ask an entire organization, entire fan base, an entire 52 other guys in your room to just say, hold, just be patient with me. I'll get there. Right. You have to show what you are and what you're able to do. And you put that on tape last year. You showed that you've got a long way to go in your mechanical development as becoming a passer. You've got a long way to go to show that you can be available for 17 weeks in the NFL regular season. And people's jobs depend on this. People's livelihood depend on this. And so it's not fair of you to sit there and ask people to be patient when you didn't show them that you were ready. And so fair, if you want to play fair, go be an accountant. There is no fair in the National Football League. You get what you earned.
Yeah, I kind of look at it the same way as every circumstance in the NFL is different. And there are lots of players probably in the league over many years who, had they had different circumstances, may have ended up working out a lot
Yeah.
better. And even sometimes I think about micro examples of this. If this one player had a better quarterback throwing to him, maybe he ends up with better numbers. If this player didn't have this injury, and that goes a little bit for JJ, or even this center didn't have better guards playing next to him, then maybe his PFF numbers would have looked a lot different. And we could go down that rabbit hole all day, but it's not the National Fair League, it's the National Football League. So,
Mm,
there's just not an even playing field for
no.
anybody. And I do think that if JJ McCarthy had been drafted by a team that was in full and complete development mode of their roster and had a 3-year plan, that they could be as patient as they needed to be and let this play out. But the circumstances just don't dictate that. And I also think that if they had been totally sold, and this speaks to a little bit of Alec Lewis's reporting recently, if they had been totally sold on the way that he handled everything, I think there's statistics that you can push aside and there's excuses that you can make. But when there's so much volatility, and some people talked about it like, oh, you hate him or something. And it's not that. It's looking at, you need consistency at that position. It's volatility of his own emotions out there, volatility of week to week, how he's just dealing with things that generally happen throughout an NFL season. And to me, that just says he needs growth, he needs time, he needs development. And that's not where the 2026 Minnesota Vikings are at.
No, especially with the fact that they're going to have to cut some big role players that were a piece of what last year's success was, especially on the defensive side of the football, because of the cap issues, right? You'd look at the cash spend that the Vikings had last year and the amount of money they put into 2025. You can't do that year after year after year after year, right? You have the cap spend. Eventually, the Wilfs are going to be like, hold on. Are you telling me that the team that won the Super Bowl spent $90 million less cash than we did last year? And we didn't even make the playoffs? Let's pull back here for a second and reset and see what's happening. And, that obviously with the firing of Kwesi and now with Brzezinski and all the things, it feels to me that we're heading for more of a reset year than we are heading for a contender year. And that's just looking at it from the outside, looking in of the cap constraints, right? You're already hearing reports about Hargrave, how he's going to have to go. You're looking at the linebacker room going, okay, Blake Cashman's the only one. There's no guarantee that we're going to get Eric Wilson back. Harrison Smith is now leaving. Ryan Kelly is now gone. We have a lot of pieces and a lot of big shoes to fill without the money and the capital to go and fill them. And so when you're looking at what can be there, you really have to start and go, okay, well, if our defense isn't going to be able to win us as many games because we don't have the pieces that we have, we better be damn sure we have a quarterback that when it comes push to shove can make the 2-minute drive, cannot turn the football over, can do it on a week in and week out basis. And I just don't think that KOC, Brzezinski, and all of the staff believes that that is where JJ McCarthy is at in his development and his career path right now.
Right. So you have these two conflicting factors of, it feels like this is the type of year where, hey, you pushed all the chips to the middle of the table. It didn't work out. Now start thinking about your draft capital, start thinking about your future salary cap situation, but you're not really in a position to do that. And I thought that Rob Brzezinski's comments on this were very interesting. He said, I believe you build teams through the draft, which was a little bit of, wink, wink, hint, hint. We might try to trade down, get some more draft capital, and look.
I'm open for business.
Yeah, that might be a little bit of it too, right? And they have to get back on track for the future. The Minnesota Vikings organization does not end in 2026. And that's why when we talked about, because I think your and I both initial impression once Kwesi was gone was, oh, look out, man. Like, this is going to be wild, the amount of cap space they're going to move and everything else. But Rob poured a lot of cold water on that idea at the combine. He said, look, you can't just restructure every single contract because you have to pay that money back eventually down the road. Even if it's 75 cents on the dollar, that's still 75 cents on your cap. And you'll end up with one of those years where you have 90 million of dead cap space. And it seems like they don't want that, but also conflicted with Kevin O'Connell is on his 5th season, doesn't have a playoff win yet. And look around the locker room. Even if you say, all right, Aaron Jones is out, Javon Hargrave is out, a couple other people, Ryan Kelly, I still look at the roster and go, I don't see why this roster cannot compete in the NFC North. Can it win the Super Bowl? Is it as good as Seattle was last year? Probably not. Probably not from player number 2 and through 53. But that doesn't mean they can't be in the playoffs. That doesn't mean they can't compete for the NFC North. And let's remember that if someone can throw the ball to Justin Jefferson, the formula changes quite a bit. That's usually been what's driven them over the recent years when they've made the playoffs.
Absolutely. If you can get back to kind of what drove this team initially and not what does the future look like, but we always want to look forward, right? Okay, what does next year look like? What does this year look like? I think in this circumstance, you have to look backwards. What worked when 2023? What worked in 2024? What worked in these times where we were winning games, we were contending, we were fighting the North, and how do we get back to that? Instead of this idea of we have to push forward with McCarthy and the face of the franchise and all this stuff, reflecting, resetting, and going, we have to get back to what KOC is comfortable with and not putting him in a position where we're sitting here for 17 weeks going, dude, change your play calling, change your doing this, change, and going, okay, if I'm ownership going, I hired Kevin O'Connell. He had a lot of success really quickly. I need to get Kevin O'Connell back to that place. And I need to do that by putting the right situation pieces on the roster. And so maybe there's a breathing year here with Kevin O'Connell in this roster and resetting a little bit. And maybe Brzezinski gets the GM job. Maybe he doesn't. And then you have to go. And I can't tell you how many times in these free agent meetings that I sat in with GMs all week long: draft, develop, retain. Draft, develop, retain. I heard it over and over and over again when you're talking about guys that are going to be potentially free agents. That is the formula that everyone wants to do. And if you find yourself having to go to free agency every year to fill holes, you overspend because the price tag gets really high. Instead of just saying, we have a guy in our building we're confident with, we love, we're going to pay him fair market value. He's happy. We're all happy. Let's go. And not going, hey, we got to pay 92 million for a guard this year because that's the market price.
I would defend a lot of what they did last year, even though we knew it was inefficient. We talked about this.
Yeah.
And from, studying the team building and analytics and all those things, we know that going all in on free agency and getting the biggest free agents is dubious a lot of times. And a lot of times the big spenders end up having it blow up. However, the New England Patriots did the same exact thing and made the Super Bowl because their quarterback played like an MVP and had JJ McCarthy played at that level, which they expected him to play at an above average level. We would have looked at a lot of those inefficient moves and said, who cares that there was an inefficient move, because they ended up, look, Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave got like 70 pressures combined. So great.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you overpaid for those 70 pressures, but by the end of the season, that defense was dangerous as heck when it was completely healthy. But we also know there's a penalty to pay if it doesn't work out for you, and they are paying that penalty right now. So now the question becomes, how do you escape where you're at while also competing in 2026? Here's what I would like from you. I would like you to give me, and I know what you're going to say is, I don't like any of these options. And if I say, hey, give me your 3 favorite options, you're going to say, why don't you just push me off a tall building instead? But I want that from you anyway. Take all the quarterbacks that NFL insiders have laid out there. You could pick from anyone that the insiders have connected to the Minnesota Vikings, and you have to pick your top 3. And let's just do it regardless of price. Let's say if you want Daniel Jones on your list, you can have him. Let's not even worry about that part.
Okay, can I go through what I think the list is, and you can add or subtract? So I think it's Daniel Jones, Aaron Rodgers, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, Kyler Murray, and Tua. Are those who am I missing?
I'll include Malik Willis in this because there was at least one person that connected Malik Willis to the Vikings.
I mean, honestly, if it's Malik Willis, I'm probably taking him because the upside there is yet to be seen. Right? We have yet to see what the upside of Malik Willis could be. I think we've seen the upside of all of these quarterbacks that are on the list behind him, and they're now on the downslope. All of these quarterbacks are on the back end of their career. I don't think you're going to see MVP level caliber from all of these guys. I'm not saying you would from Malik, but there's still some, maybe like he might still have it in there. You don't know. So I would probably take Malik 1. I'm going to go with Kyler 2 because of the escapability, the athleticism, the ability to create with his feet. And then from there, oh Lordy, give me Kirk. I guess give me Kirk. Give me the guy that can again reflect back what worked. He can get the ball to 18. He could get the ball to Hawkinson, like all of those things. Can he last 18 games? I don't know, but give me Kirk over Geno, who maybe has the least respect for the football of any starting quarterback in the National Football League that I saw last year. Derek Carr. I've seen guys come off in like retirement for a year. It doesn't just pick back up. You don't just see the speed and you're like, oh, I'm right back to remembering what it was like to get hit by Will Anderson, right? That stuff doesn't just come flying back. And then Aaron Rodgers, I just don't want the headache. I personally just don't want the headache that brings.
Just wanted to break in here, folks, with a FanDuel question of the day. So currently, the Vikings are plus 700 to win the NFC North. Is there something they could do at quarterback that you think would up those odds, make those odds better for the Minnesota Vikings to win the NFC North? Again, they're plus 700 to win the division. Those are the lowest odds of the four teams. Is there something they could do at QB that you would say, all right, the Vikings have a much better chance than that to win the division? Let me know in the comment section. Yeah, for me, Rodgers is much more of a, I just don't see a possible upside because he is 43. And I
Right.
mean, last year he is a totally mid NFL quarterback. He's probably 20th, 22nd in the NFL. He's inconsistent. There are good games. There are very, very bad games. And without any sort of mobility or ability to really protect himself, he has to get rid of the ball basically immediately. And if he doesn't do that, then he's just throwing it away and trying not to take hits. Even when his own teammate bumped into him having fun, he was like, I'm going to die. Like, that's just not, I think, a great situation for Aaron Rodgers. Malik Willis, I've always been intrigued by this idea because, well, it's a very, very small sample size. I do think that there's clearly something there. There is
Hmm.
upside there. There's physical skill there that is undeniable. But I mean, that's a big bet to make. And I think what it comes down to when you make your list is, do you want the door open for JJ or not? I mean,
Yeah.
because if you go get Kyler Murray, I think the door is closed for JJ. So what it ultimately comes down to, I think, when you're making your list is, do you want somebody that JJ McCarthy could beat out or not? Because I made two separate lists. I made one that had Kyler Murray at the top, and then I think it was Malik Willis and Daniel Jones as guys. Hey, this is your starting quarterback, and maybe Kirk was after that. And then I made a separate list of, hey, apparently the trade for Mac Jones is not happening based on what I heard in Indy, which is that they want you to give them Justin Jefferson for Mac Jones or something. It's crazy. Which is fine for them. I mean, why should you give up a quarterback that kind of saved your bacon last year in the middle of the season when Brock Purdy went down? So Geno was my top option if you want to leave the door open for JJ. I don't think Kirk is that. I think if you're bringing in Kirk, he's only coming back to start with a promise to start, or he would go somewhere else, or he would just go work for CBS and get a lot of money out of them. So that's my question to you, though, is would you rather see them just say, look, 2026 belongs to someone else, and if you prove it behind the scenes, then maybe you're a part of a quarterback competition in 2027, and there's a chance here? Or there's another option where they trade him. Like, this has so many different tentacles, but really the question for you is, do you want to see JJ have a real chance, or do you want to see them just say, we're going with somebody else?
I want to see them go with somebody else and give JJ a chance to truly develop because he hasn't had that. He had the year that he gets hurt, doesn't step foot on the field, loses 50 pounds, looks like a skeleton, has to work to get his body back. When you're working to get your body back, how much are you throwing? How much are you getting back to it? This year, you show up and you just basically hand him the keys to the car and say, hey, let's see what happens. Crash and burn. The times it looks good, doesn't look good. Give him a chance to reset his career. And if we've learned anything from Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield and all these quarterbacks that are having a resurgence, sometimes it just takes time. And yes, you have him for 3 more years if you pick up his 5th year. I don't think having a stopgap option here with a chance for him to still compete, but knowing that it most likely, unless he just all of a sudden comes back from this offseason and looks like Brett Favre, probably not going to beat out the guy that you sign. That's okay. You still have a serviceable backup quarterback that can develop, learn, grow from whoever they bring into the room, and then try again in 2027. So I don't think shutting the door and just kicking him out of the building is the right thing to do, but setting him up with the success rate of having an opportunity to grow and develop in this league is probably the route that I would take.
I think if you are completely done with him based on everything you've seen
Yeah,
behind the scenes, because that's what we don't, there is
correct.
so much we don't know that goes on a day to day basis inside a building between coaches and players and teammates and everything else. So if what they've seen behind the scenes they feel like is really disturbing, then get a third round pick for him, just move on,
Yeah,
cut bait, say, hey, look,
great point.
there's a lot of first round draft picks in the world who have not worked out. and you can name them all. But I mean, like, think about it like a Paxton Lynch that basically
Yeah.
just never played for the Denver Broncos and then was out of the league. And you go, what the heck happened to that guy? And whatever they saw behind the scenes, they just didn't believe in. So if you don't believe in that there's any path, I tend to think that they do believe there's a path. And all the guys you mentioned, there's something in common. And this is for the people who say, like, you hate JJ or whatever. Like, I don't know. I mean, you
My
played for
victory
the you played
my
for the
victory
team.
lap has not been taken yet, okay? I'm not victory lapping just yet on JJ McCarthy, but there is enough there, and your point is so good, Matthew, because you're so right on the fact that we have no idea when those doors are closed and the camera is off. Like, you hear it from the team, we love the guy, the kid, refer to the kid, but then you hear Aaron Jones, "Well, I didn't need the offense dumbed down for me." Like, there's all these playing factors to it. So, yeah, if you're done with him, get him out of the building because there's no reason to have him there moping around and being that guy. If you truly believe he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL, there's not enough of them, so you can't just let him walk out of the building.
Right, right. I was just gonna say, you want them to succeed really
Yes,
badly.
I do.
You got the helmet right there, and they gave you a lot of money out of their wallet,
Yeah, yeah.
to get you going in life. But
So
look,
they told me I sucked and to leave, but yeah.
well, there was a cap issue. They had to bring in Sheldon Richardson and,
Kirk and
Kirk.
Tom
Oh yeah,
Compton.
Kirk, was he here for a
That
lot of money? I don't remember that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I still occasionally complain about Jarius Wright not being retained
Mm,
that season. But anyway, not the point. The point is just that there are instances where quarterbacks have taken the next step eventually, but almost always it comes with them stepping away from the field. And the guy who's kind of the most comparable to JJ, because we use like the Sam Darnold thing, he can't throw a ball like Sam Darnold, and he never will. But Ryan Tannehill is an example
mm.
of a guy who had some of these same problems, touch on the football, didn't throw a lot of passes in college. He ends up going to Tennessee. And I know he started fairly quickly there, but it was the same sort of thing. And Darnold went to the 49ers, sat for an entire year, and he cites that as the most valuable year of his career toward becoming Super Bowl champion Sam Darnold. So the idea of him having to develop for a year behind the scenes is not ludicrous and doesn't have to mean that you're completely done with him. It just means the onus shifts to on him. Because I was watching the 49ers documentary on AMC, pretty fun watch. And Steve Young said at one point, he just said to himself, because he's angry, he's not playing, and there's this quarterback controversy. And he just said, I'm going to come to work every day and be the best version I can be at my job. And that's the only thing I can do. If McCarthy takes that approach, then he's got a chance. But if he doesn't, then it's probably going to fall apart. I tend to think you should get a starter for 2026 because I
Mhm.
believe you could still win with this. I also just don't want to see Justin Jefferson suffer anymore. That's
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't want to
Yeah.
see balls flying over his head. Let's talk about there are other players on the team, the roster. So coming out of Indy, what was your big takeaway from some of the positions maybe that the Vikings could be interested in? I mean, there's actually kind of a lot of them. So what was your sense coming out of Indy about this draft class?
Yeah, so the draft class is interesting because there's certain positions that are really good. Like edge rusher in this class is great. I think it's a very deep, very solid edge rusher class. Running back position is atrocious, right? You have the guys at the top, but the depth pieces that you can usually find of a diamond in the rough in the fourth or the fifth that can give you meaningful snaps. I don't know how many of those guys there really are in this draft class. I think there's some really intriguing prospects on the tackle position coming out of Indy. I think there's some really good pieces there that if I'm the Vikings, I'm looking at drafting one of those guys for development for when Brian O'Neill is ready to move on, right? Never a bad idea to get one of those guys in that you feel really confident about your tackle. And that's probably more like a late day 2, early day 3 pick, but I think there's going to be some good tackle development there. The center position is an interesting one because I don't know how many true starting level ready to play centers there are in this draft right now. But I think there's some really good guys that have played good football that could come in and develop for a couple of years and eventually maybe turn into that starter. And then obviously the linebacker market, you've got the freak shows that ran there in Indy. You've got the really productive guys. But the DBs for me are what are really interesting because they're all big DBs. Like there wasn't there's the one obviously you have the small guy that's going to be up top, like he's amazing. But from the most part, you look, it's like these dudes are all really big, like fast, long, rangy type corners. And if that's a position that you and I have talked about at need for this Minnesota Vikings team, I like these physical corners that are in this draft class.
I was looking at Avion Terrell, and I don't think he did any running, but his actual on-field stuff. And it was like, that's one of them. That's how they're supposed
Mhm.
to move if
Yep.
they're one of those guys. And you think about how long the Vikings have been patchworking this thing together at the cornerback position. Literally since Xavier Rhodes left, they have been, hey, let's sign this guy, let's bring in that guy. And Byron Murphy is a very good overall corner. And I was very happy with the way as a complete season that Isaiah Rodgers played for them, but it's not a we're going to plug this guy in for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and he's going to be good over there. And we know it from a year to year basis. That's what makes it worth potentially a pick in the first round because there's a lot of
Mhm.
intrigue. I also look at maybe down the line a little bit to could you get solid starters for corner because I thought it was a very deep looking position. You have the guy from San Diego State, Chris Johnson, who looked really good to me in terms of his movement skill, but he probably is not a first round draft pick. Sometimes if you're not a free corner, you tend to drop a little bit. Colton Hood, I thought, had a very good week for him on the field. And then the underwear Olympic stuff that he did as well. That position in particular stood out. What did you think of Dylan Thienemann's freak show?
Mm,
Because there is a question there. Is it really worth it to get a guy like
I
that?
know.
And do we have to compare him to Cooper DeJean? Do we have to?
Dude, hey,
Is there
the exciting whites are growing. Okay. We're growing in the NFL. There's more exciting whites year after year at the
yeah.
DB position. Leave us alone.
We need a couple of white running backs, maybe another Wes Welker type. There's the kid, Eli Heidenreich, who
Yeah.
I love. I want Eli Heidenreich in like the 6th round. That guy can catch a freaking football. He is the next Julian Edelman. So I'll do it as well. But I, I think that someone of that caliber of athleticism who can play nickel as well as safety is probably worth the 18th overall draft pick.
I think it is, especially with the Brian Flores system, right? I think if you're just looking for a guy that maybe you just play a too high shell and that's what you do, and you just ask him to stand back there and cover the deep third or the deep half or play quarters or whatnot, maybe not your guy. But for a guy that you want to be able to drop down into the box and play that cover three buzz or blitz him off the edge and have him be physical, a mismatch on a smaller third down running back, or be able to cover these tight ends now that are running 4.39s and all those things, I think he probably is worth that pick. I think he is worth that pick for a value and the way that you can use him in the blitz package and all the different things. You're seeing more and more of these safeties that you want as the Swiss Army knives, right? Kyle Hamilton kind of started it. Harrison Smith started it forever ago, but you're seeing more and more of these guys. Nick Amanwari from Seattle, like those are the dudes that you want. And I think he can come in and Brian Flores could go shiny new toy. I'm going to use you everywhere, and he could be an immediate impact player, which is what you want when you're drafting one of those guys in the first round.
There's so many combinations of first, second round pick that I like from the way that the board appears. Here we are in early March to expect it to kind of play out where guys are slotting into. Because I thought if Emmanuel McNeil Warren was going to be a top 15, top 20 pick, he probably needed to be an absolute freak show at the combine, and he really wasn't. That's more of a second round draft pick. He's very instinctual and very fluid in his movements. But if I'm looking for Eamon Ware, I'm looking for holy cow, this guy sets this thing on fire. And now running a 4.5 is super
Yeah.
slow in Indy.
Oh,
Based on there's got to be something there with either the laser tracking or how guys prepare for it, or I don't know, something
people,
that is
the test, people are getting better at beating the test.
yeah.
Like you give guys years and years and years of studying how to do the test, it's going to just keep getting better and better and better and better. I want to see guys run a 40 with the football in their hand. That's the next evolution that I want with, okay, put a football in his hand, give him a 5-yard running start, and then time his 40 with the football in his hand. I think that would be amazing to see what guys could do there.
For the offensive linemen,
Of
especially, just in
course.
case they
Yeah.
pick up a fumble.
Also, hey, yeah, bone to pick with you here, Matthew.
Oh
Why
yeah, yeah, yeah.
wouldn't you stay
Mhm.
and then view the offensive lineman on Saturday? How dare you not stay 7 full days in Indianapolis, pay for your own hotel room and your flights and your food for a week so you can interview the fat kids? I just want to ask, how dare you?
Yeah, I know that became somewhat of an internet controversy that there wasn't. Although what I did hear was the photo that was taken was 15 minutes before, and if you know anything about football reporters, we don't show up 15 minutes before. If you tell, because everything's late all the time for a world that always says if you're not 10 minutes early, whatever, everything's late. You can show up exactly on the dot, and you'll probably still wait 15 minutes. So some of my colleagues that were there were like, actually, the room filled in just fine, and if you watch any of the podiums, the fat guys got their questions. The problem is, though, that the brass talks on Tuesday. So we
Mhm.
fly in on Monday. In order to talk to, Jake Slaughter, I got to stay all the way through Saturday, which is a very expensive endeavor. And I think for a lot of people, it's like that. There's only so much budget that the newspapers are sending or the sports radio stations that have Monday through Friday shows, and then they leave Friday rather than staying for those. So I wish that they would readjust that or just kind of pair up maybe, hey, we're doing this position and offensive lineman to get those done by Friday. But I did see a couple of even former offensive linemen being out there like, this shows the media doesn't care about the big guys. Like, this shows you don't know ball, my ball, which is reporting, because the big guys, Brian O'Neill, Garrett Bradbury, Ryan Kelly, I can run through them in my entire career. Jeremiah Sirles have
Mm.
been some of the best interviews that you're ever going to have. These are guys who see the game in a totally different way than anybody else on the field. I would have loved to stay to talk with them, but did not get a chance. From the center position, though, can we circle back to that?
Yeah.
Because as we go through this, I've been trying all these different pairings. Like, what about Kenyon Sadiq in the first round? And then you go with like a corner in the second, and how does that work? I like the idea of drafting a center. The trouble is, you just can't make a third round center come into the NFL now. I think when Pat Elflein did it, the league was a little different. I don't know that you can do that. I think they need to have a veteran starting center, even if you draft one to develop to be your guy there eventually.
Yeah, I think you need, and I think probably the path is going to be Brandel. I think that's probably the path that they're going to go with, if I had to guess, because of all the things you just mentioned. I think they draft a center in maybe the fourth or maybe even late third, wherever. Where do they pick at in the third? Are they kind of at the top or late in the
I
third?
think it's late middle. There's going to be a comp pick thrown in there somewhere.
So if you have a late third round pick and you have a center that you fall in love with, don't let him fall to day three. It's kind of right there in that same early day three, late day two. Like, go ahead and grab that guy. Right. A name that jumps to mind is Sam Hecht. Right. Sam Hecht out of Kansas State. I think he's a really good ball player. Jake Slaughter, you mentioned him as well. You start to see who are some of these guys that might be able to flex into center too, that are guard positions. And can we get a guy that, hey, we want to draft this guy to be our future center, but he also could swing guard for us in his first couple years or his first year. And so I think drafting a center is important because you want to make sure, but the Vikings specifically, it has to be a specific type of center. It can't be I don't think they're going to go look for the guy that runs out of his shoes for the wide zone thing, like my guy in Seattle that runs really well and gets up on that piece. And that's why I like the Sam Hecht. He's not super flashy in his testing numbers. He's got a big old bubble butt. He sits well on the bull rushes. He doesn't get pushed back if you watch his film at Kansas State. Like, he's the guy that's going to control the depth of the pocket. I don't think he's a plug and play ready starter, but I do think he's probably OC1 in this class. And if you're sitting there at the end of the third and he's sitting there, I don't know why you wouldn't take that guy.
I did do a draft sim where I took him in the second, but then I felt bad about it because I was like, I feel like that's a reach. That's a reach for something that they
Well,
really need.
center one usually goes in the second.
Yeah.
Right. OC1 usually falls into the first part, the second round. Occasionally you get the Linderbaum that goes in the first, but I honestly think people are going to stop taking centers in the first because you pretty much just waste your fifth year option,
Right.
because your fifth year option is not broken down between guard, center, tackle. It's just O line. And so they're running into this issue right now in Baltimore with Linderbaum, where they didn't pick up his fifth year option because it would have been $23.5 million, which would have made him the highest paid center by like $4 million. And you just can't do that from a statistics and a cap per point of view. So taking a center or even an interior guy on day one can kind of screw you for wasting that fifth year option, versus with tackle, it can be a bargain. So I think you're going to see more of those OC ones go in early day two, late day two, because you can get them for a good value pick.
What did you think of the DTs? Now Woods didn't do stuff there, and I was really interested to see what he was going to look like, Peter Woods. But Caleb Banks, just the weigh-in was very, very impressive. And Chris Trapasso, draft analyst, was telling me that his size is basically the same as Linval Joseph, who you and I know. There are very few people who you would say, "Wow, that's a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big guy," but doesn't really have the production. But can you work with that? Because you can't really get that anywhere else except for in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you're looking for. You're looking for a guy that's stout in the middle and going to be able to eat things up, or you want that guy that's going to be a jet off the three technique and come off the edge and get after the pass rusher. And, it's hard to, again, these guys are getting so freaky in the middle now. I think you can get enamored with the athlete and not as much of the player. And, you see that from time to time with these guys, these DTs that go high that have incredible athletic ability, but maybe they're a little raw in their technique. And I'll tell you this as an offensive lineman, when you're playing an incredible athlete at the defensive tackle position, it adds a lot of stress. But if you can tell that you can get on them quickly and they're not great with their hands yet, or that piece there, it can really frustrate those guys that just were able to get away with it in college because they were so gifted. You go against a Kevin Zeitler that all of a sudden is, or a Skronsky, and they're on you right now, and you're like, I couldn't even get my move started, and then the ball's gone. Like, there's a pretty steep learning curve for those guys. So I would always tend to lean more on the D tackle side to the production versus the athletic value.
I totally agree. And the production has correlated better than just athletic freakishness. I threw out the Sadiq idea. Do you like it? I
Hard,
actually
hard
kind
to
of,
hate
I
it.
kind of like it. Yeah, I kind of like, because we just talked about this. The franchise will go on. So TJ Hawkinson may or may not be here for next year, but even if he's here, if your room of weapons is Jefferson, Addison, Kenyon Sadiq, TJ Hawkinson, Josh Oliver, Jordan Mason, running back X in the backfield, I feel really good about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to fall in love with that guy. I mean, again, production, right? He had the production. He's had NFL quarterbacks throwing to him, right? Dante Moore would have been a high round pick this year. He had Bo Nix. Like, he had the pieces there with him. And then he tests like a freak show, right? You test like a freak show, and you're seeing to be able to pair him with a Josh Oliver, because he's not an inline guy. Like, let's not even pretend we're going to ask him to put his hand in the dirt on 12 personnel and go block Daniil Hunter 12, 15 times a game. That's not what he's going to do. He's going to be the guy that you're going to force Nick and Moire to go out there and to cover him. And you're going to force, maybe they need to bring a corner in to cover him. He's a mismatch waiting to happen. And you saw guys that can have that kind of success, that can sit and not be TE1 right away, but be role players and be package players that really can strain and put on the defense as you groom them to become tight end one. And, I'm trying to think of, I'm losing the guy who's from Baltimore, the guy that's a free agent this year.
Isaiah Likely.
Isaiah Likely, right? He has never been able to be tight end one. I think someone's going to pay him this year to go be tight end one because he sat behind Mark Andrews. And so it really kind of, it again pushes Hawkinson as well, right? Looking at it long term, how do we get the best for the team? Well, bring a guy in that puts Hawk on notice of like, hey, I got to pick my game up a little bit more too. I got to compete a little bit more too, because we got this young gun in the room. Again, you can't look at it from a personal perspective. You have to look at it from a business perspective, which is I need to draft the future of this position. If that means I can get the best out of my starter for another 2 years, great. And then I can put this guy in there as well.
And it gives you a lot of personnel, different things that you can do there.
Yeah,
That
13's coming back, right?
It
13 personnel is
is.
coming back. The Rams use the crap out of it. Seattle use the crap out of it. The Niners use the crap out. Like, 13 personnel is coming back because the pendulum is swinging back to big boy football and not as much the drop back and pass 63 times a game.
And it really kind of reminds me of the Vikings in 2019, where they drafted Irv Smith Jr. before he had the injuries, and they put him with Kyle Rudolph. And Kyle was a little salty about it, but he got over it, and they played really good football between the two of them. It gave them an advantage in the run game. Irv could play out of the slot at times, and then your two wide receivers as your starters. This is a way that you can do it, because I have a tough time believing that they're going to find a wide receiver 3. I saw The Athletic reported that there's like 10 teams interested in Jalen Naylor. He's very likely gone. But that also shows you how there's nothing in free agency at the wide receiver position.
No.
Sure, you can draft it. I'm a proponent of drafting it high. But, for this year and then and beyond, having two wide receivers, top tight end that you can grow and develop maybe into a star difference making tight end. I just like that concept. When the Bears drafted Loveland last year, I kind of made fun of them like, oh, good, another tight end who's going to average 10 yards per catch, but the guy's a freak athlete and started going downfield. And then everything looked a little different. These are the shifts in the NFL.
I like the Vandy kid too, Eli.
Yeah.
I think he's a really good productive guy. He's not quite as big, but I mean, he jumped like 45
Yes.
inches or something.
Stowers, yeah.
I could almost swear there was springs in the vert this year, because that's one that you can kind of cheat it, right? Where you like lock that trap in and you just hold that guy and he's trying to yank on it. But 45 inches, man, you saw it when he jumped too. So there's a lot of good pieces at the tight end room, I think, too. And that poor Tennessee guy that ran the like 4.9, I was like, why'd you run? Why did you do that? Dude, get a case of the 4.9s and be like, my hamstring.
Let's wrap on this.
Do we have to? I feel like we're just getting into draft stuff, dude.
We could talk all day. I don't know how much time you have. I don't know if are you signing players? Are you getting guys?
I got stress. Stress is building. Free agency is starting, right? But we got some time. We're doing free agency prep, which was all good stuff. And then I got to start recruiting high school kids. So I gotta get on Rivals and On3 and start finding ways to meet with 17-year-olds.
Well, we got all day. Let's keep talking about it then. Let's go. Let's keep talking about it. Then we'll get to free agency. I was going to say free agency love. Oh, I would love to see it, or I would hate to see it, is what the free agency is going to be.
Okay.
But let's keep going down this draft path.
Yeah.
The wide receiver class is pretty fascinating. I know. Yeah. Who was that did that? Tyson?
Lemon.
Oh, Lemon. Yeah,
Lemon, right? Doing the
that was weird.
Look at my eyebrows talking with you here. And it's like
very uncomfortable.
Not a good look. And then to screw up the drills too. But hey, he'll probably still get drafted in the first because someone will convince themselves that it's okay. It'll be fine.
What I've become sold on here is let's say they go Thieneman. They don't do my kind of dream idea, which is, Sadiq, and they go with Thieneman, which I'm perfectly comfortable with in Flores' defense. Yeah.
Not mad about that pick.
Yeah. Not mad. There's all of a sudden, oh, this bad draft. You'll never draft a good player. Go to the combine. Oh my gosh. They're all so good. Thieneman's tape is also awesome. So, but let's look at the wide receiver position as something that maybe you're not spending a first round draft pick on. I really love the second wave of guys. Like there's been a very clear, here's what the first rounders are going to be. But the second wave has a lot of guys that I could see, Brazel from Tennessee is someone who stood out to me. Even day 3 had wide receivers that look intriguing. Bryce Lance, I think, is probably a day 3 guy, but an intriguing prospect to maybe you're kind of having him and Ty Felton battle it out for who's going to be the freaky number 3 wide receiver. I love where this is for a day 2 or potentially even early day 3 pick for the Vikings.
Yeah, I think you want to definitely, especially in this offense, that value pick for this offense is going to be higher than it is for, say, the Baltimore Ravens, or, higher than it is for a run first heavy team. And that's where you have to look at it from a value perspective. Not all teams are created equal in what they value, right? Some teams are going to draft a line. Remember when they drafted Jack Campbell in the first round of Detroit? Everyone's like, a linebacker in the first round? What's wrong with you? Well, he turned out to be an all-pro because that system loves linebackers. So if you love a guy that fits your system, go get him, right? Go get him. And that's what I really hope Brzezinski does in this draft, is I hope that he targets guys that says, this is what we need. Kevin O'Connell gave me his wish list. We're going to go get him. And I think that was also part of the marker that he put in the press conference of, hey, draft what you did, draft, develop, retain. Go find yourself that wide receiver 3. The thing that I didn't see this year, which was surprising me, is there's not the giant receiver this year.
Yeah.
There's not the Jeff Allen, the gosh dang it, CTE is hitting me in a freaking hard place today. George Pickens, like that big, huge bodied receiver. There really isn't that guy in this class. So it's really going to be, do we want speed? Do we want agility? Do we want routes? Do we want catchability? And all those dudes do fall into that day 3 category. And I think there's a really good amount of those guys. I really like the Lance kid out of North Dakota State. I mean, he basically tested the same as Christian Watson, was not quite as productive, but he has that athletic ability to just go. And I think that's a thing that I would like to see out of the wide receiver 3 position here in Minnesota, is you don't see Jefferson's not just going to go, right? He's great at creating the separation and setting things up, but we need a burner. And I think if you're looking for a burner at the wide receiver 3 position that can take the top off the defense, that's who I'm targeting in day 3 of this draft.
So I think the big guy, although he wasn't insanely fast, is Malachi Fields from Notre Dame. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, he's okay. Like, he's not as productive as I would like to see, and the contested catches weren't quite what I would have liked to see on the tape either.
I'll tell you the guy that I was really intrigued by because of what you're talking about, that zoomy element,
Mm,
was Omar Cooper Jr. Like ran
yeah,
extremely well.
Indiana, right?
Yep, Indiana,
Yep,
highly productive guy, had almost 1,000 yards this year, 13 touchdowns, yards per route run was through the roof. I
that
mean,
catch against Penn State.
yes, yeah. Well, and
Oh,
that's like the springs in the shoes of
mhm.
somebody who can go up in the air, but also like he has explosiveness. He has, get the ball in your hands and make a play. That was kind of a big part of their offense there. They had good receivers. Surratt looked pretty good this year. But there's a lot of guys that you could talk me into that I think would be potential fits for this team. And then I couldn't help myself being like, how do you get Brendan Thompson in the 7th round? Like the guy who ran the 4.26. I was like, woo. Yeah, like
Yeah.
we all do this. We watch the track meet and go, oh, I want that guy. Speaking
No
of
one wants to
which,
get John Ross, man. No
I
one wants
know,
to be John
I
Ross.
know. And anyway, Zachariah Branch is another like catch and run type of guy. Very smooth movement in the combine stuff, but hard to figure out when half of his passes are screens. The running back position is just, you know, uh,
It's not good. It's not.
it's really
Like, it's
not.
just not good. I mean, there's the top 2 guys, and then after that, you're just kinda like, just guys. Like, they're just guys, and I knew that from the day this class started, and you know why? All the good ones are going back to school,
Yeah.
because the running back situation is so undervalued in the draft that these guys honestly can make more money in NIL than they can
Oh,
as
sure.
rookies.
Yeah.
And so if you're a day 3 running back, stay in school as long as you can. And so you're going to continue to see this trend with the running backs of every year it's going to be the top guys that have no more eligibility left. And then everyone else is going to go back to school as long as they can, which is also a curse for them because the more mileage you have and the older you are as a running back, the more knocks you get from the NFL. And so I think the NFL running back draft is going to continue to be, unless you have a class that graduates that's all really good players, is going to continue to get depressed.
What about Jadarian Price? Does he intrigue you?
He intrigues me, but I don't know how good of a pass catcher he is.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a really good first and second down running back, but I'm not entirely sure that he's the guy that I'm going to love coming out, catching the screens and doing that piece of this.
Yeah. The thing about the pass catching is so Aaron Jones is unique. He can run a go route.
But he's probably gone,
But
right?
how many? Well, my thought is, how many other running backs in the NFL would you send on a deep crossing route as they did a few times? Aaron Jones. I mean, very few, right? Like,
Very
yeah, you
few,
need to be able to
very
catch
few.
it, but most of the time, the league just doesn't have Marshall Falks anymore, or guys who are the scat back.
Todd Gurley's.
Yeah, I mean, but even he was kind of like a swing guy. I mean, like the '90s style. This guy comes out of the backfield, out of the
Mm,
pro set, split back under center, and actually like goes downfield. We just don't see that a whole lot
right.
anymore. It's mostly swing passes, screen passes, and then checkdowns. So can you be serviceable there? It's in a draft like this where we're talking about, hey, in the 2nd round, you should be able to get a really strong player. Do you want to spend that on a running back, or would you rather take a project like Seth McGowan was very impressive in his workout, explosive guy. So there are guys that I think maybe day 3 types that might have role player type potential, but there's not that Delvin Cook that you're going to be
No.
able to take in the 2nd round.
What about Allen from Penn State? I like him, productive, a lot of carries, runs between the tackles well, has the burner type speed. I'm not sure if he ran this weekend or not, but when I watch the tape, right, you see him pull away from guys quite often. He's a guy that I've been really intrigued with too.
His numbers are terrific. I mean, absolutely terrific. Extremely high in terms of grades. He averaged 6.2 yards per carry. In terms of his rushing grade, it was 91.3. Like, yeah, there's clearly an option there. 1,300 yards rushing. I'm actually a little surprised that he's not getting a little more run with numbers
Yeah,
like that.
I
Maybe
was.
everyone
I
from
mean,
Penn State's going to get overlooked because they were bad.
they're not Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
I don't. He
Yeah.
was a running back that I watched this year a lot doing Big Ten stuff. That I was like, man, this dude's definitely an NFL back. He's going to be a guy that I think you could draft on day 3 and come and start. I mean, a lot of games for you or be that solid RB2.
And that's what I mean is that you have Jordan Mason and you know that Mason can give you 200 carries.
Yes.
So can you get someone in free agency to fill a spot, bring back Xavier Scott to be that wide receiver running back, where he was kind of crafty in that role, and then draft someone on day 3 to be your number 2. It's a tough needle to thread, because then you're hoping that that 4th round draft pick, kind of like the Ty Chandler, he's got the physical skill, couldn't really figure it out in the NFL, and then you just don't end up using him. But what else can they really do in this spot? Which I think is really the story of the Minnesota Vikings roster and the draft, which is going to be that, like, there's a lot of positions that you could take, because when we look at that spot, it makes a lot of sense, but also you're going to need it to work out pretty quickly for a lot of these positions. I mean, if they take Thieneman, but hey, buddy, you're playing. You're playing right away. It speaks to how necessary it is for them to succeed in this draft.
It's also why I'm a big component on draft a running back every year in day 3, right? Because when you get them into that 4th and 5th, the guaranteed money really isn't there for past year 2, really after year 1. And so you get a guy in, he either can or he can't, and you're not too, I mean, it doesn't hurt your heart a ton to let that guy walk after year 2 and just be like, hey, it didn't work, we're drafting another one. Right? And so that's where I look at some of these running back value picks on day 3. Again, the depreciation of the market, and from a guy that has 2-3 running backs in the league right now, take it for what it's worth. That's just the nature of what the position is right now. And if you can hit on one of those guys and have them for 4 years and have them be productive, they're on the cheap and you're getting a lot of production out of them. And then you can let them walk because they're beat up and go find the next one. So I'm a big component of drafting a running back every year in day 3 and just kind of figuring it out until you can.
Yeah, I think that day 1 and day 2, second round, will often produce the guy who carries the ball 250 times still,
Yes.
like always and forever.
There's 3 of those guys, 4 of those guys a year.
There's not that many, right? So if you can grab one, if you could get the Delvin Cook, if you could get the Bijan Robinson or Jameer Gibbs, I think that those guys are worth it,
Yes.
because, a lot of it's, well, second contract. And what about when he's 27, he's going to fall off? If you're a GM, you're like, I don't know how long I'm going to have this job. We need this guy to run the dang football. But I think that those day 3 guys, duos are still in the NFL, and you can figure that out. So is there, because I was thinking about this, I was looking at the linebackers and I thought, man, Blake Cashman's only got 1 year left, and we don't know what's going to happen with Ivan Pace or Eric Wilson, restricted free agent and free agent. That's not crazy either. The game of talk me into is actually very, very straightforward. You would win every time, I think, with the draft, because you could tell me, like, hey, wait, how is running and running backs in, but linebackers not in? Like, shouldn't they, get a little more love and a little more value, going forward here? Is there something that the Vikings could do in the draft that you would be like, what are you doing? Because I've thought of about 40 different combinations of 1st, 2nd, 3rd round draft picks that I can make work easily. If you drafted safety, receiver, and center, like, okay. If you drafted, tight end, linebacker, and edge rusher, even, you could make an argument like Andrew Van Ginkel's only got 1 year left on his contract. There's almost nothing that I can't make work. Is there something in the draft that they could do where you'd be like, I don't know, guys, I don't know what Rob Brzezinski was thinking?
I think if you go and you reach for a guy like Jake Galladay, like the linebacker from Cincinnati, really good productiveness, but not, or even the Rodriguez kid from Texas Tech, where I think a lot of guys are going to fall in love with those guys because they're great stories and they're all the production at the level. But linebacker for me, unless it's the Styles kid, right? I might say, yeah, Styles,
Sonny Styles, yep.
Yeah, the dude that was built in a lab and then put out there on God's green earth. Like, that's the one pick where you can be like, yeah, we can make this guy work. But then I think back to, who is the kid from Clemson that had the crazy numbers, the line, Isaiah something, Simmons, right? Like, fell in love with the production and fell in love with the combine and then never really found his role. I think that if you take linebacker in round 1 or 2 for this group and it's not Styles, then I'm probably could have got some more out of value for that pick.
The only thing that they could do, so I agree with you there. Yeah. I mean, if you're taking a total non-premium position, it really has to be someone who's awesome. If they went edge rusher in the 1st round, I'd be like, okay, that's really weird. But I mean, even then you could sell me that rotations are king along the defensive line. If you're saying that guy's the best player by far, let's say Reuben Bain's little arms drop him down the board, right? Yeah. You're like, okay, well, you just have to take them and then figure out how to use them all. That's fine. The Eagles have done that for many years. Just keep drafting freak D linemen and you'll figure out where and when to play them because they can rotate. I could justify all that. The one thing I could not justify, and I don't think there's any chance that they would do this, would be to use any future capital to move up anywhere, anytime in
Oh
this draft.
God, no!
That would be the only
Please,
thing I could not justify.
yeah, not in this draft. Right, not in this draft, especially with. I mean, there's so many value players that I don't know if there's a guy that you circle that's like that dude's worth moving up for. I mean, because usually that's for a quarterback, right? Or that's for the best running back or the best edge rusher. I don't think the Vikings are in a position to be able to give up stuff and give up draft capital because of the cap issues that we're in. We need rookie scale players. And so I completely agree with you. That would be nightmare fuel if you ask me to move up. Now moving down, there's some value into that piece, but definitely not to move up.
I've been thinking a lot about how far could you move down and not feel like you dropped out of the top players in this draft. Kind of depends on how the beginning of the draft plays out and who's still there.
Mhm.
But the early second has kind of been a gold mine in the NFL. I mean, think Eamon
Yeah.
Warre is early second. There's a lot of really good players who have gone. Joey Porter Jr., remember he dropped out and they talked a lot about that. There's usually somebody who just slides through the cracks and ends up there. It would be a very disappointing live show for me to do the draft that way. And I think a lot of fans would be like, wait, you sacrificed, and that's what Quasey did. And it didn't work out, as if you could never, ever trade down again because it didn't work out that one time. But even then, I'm not saying I think that's the right plan. I think you could justify doing it knowing how many players and positions you need to fill into the future.
A lot of it too depends if your top three guys are off the board, right? If the top
Yes.
three
Yeah.
first round picks that you had graded internally are no longer there, and now you're just drafting someone in the first because you have a second round grade on them, but you're just sitting there like, well, we don't. The best player available is an offensive tackle right now, and we don't want to do that. Then we need a draft for need. That's how you justify moving out, is when your top three need players at that position are gone. And then you go, okay, well, let's move back so we can get that position of need and have maybe 2 seconds or 2/3 or whatever it might be, or build for next year's draft, which is going to be much better from a depth perspective at a lot of the positions.
Okay, you got anything else? Have you got it all out? Is there
For
more you want to?
now,
We,
I
you,
think, I,
we
I
could
think,
all day. I
think,
got all
I
day. I
think,
need to walk
hey,
the
listen,
dog at some point, but we could,
my dog's sitting over here. Let's see if I can do this real quick. Can you see my weird dog over there? That's just how he likes to
can't quite
sleep.
get to him. Oh, there he is. I saw a
Oh,
little bit of him. I saw a little bit
yep.
of
So
him.
just a weird dog, just a weird dog over there. But no, I think for now, I think we're good for now. I think we're good for now.
Okay,
I think this can help us. I
got
think
some
this
of it
can help
out.
us where we go. But I think it's going to continue to change and move as trades happen. Right, trades are going to be going on now. You saw Houston's gotten rid of 2 offensive linemen already. You've got teams that need to replace their entire offensive lines. Like from a Vikings perspective, I think we're good. From an NFL's perspective, whew, buckle in, boys, because it's about to be a fun next 2 weeks.
I know. I mean, you could pick almost any team, and there's so many storylines. But let's look at free agency and your I would love to see it. I would hate to see it. I'll just kick one off and give you a chance to think. I would hate to see if Malik Willis went to the Miami Dolphins because
Mm.
I think that that guy has done an amazing job of really embracing his role, growing, developing, and then when he was called upon, like think about how many games he had to be ready for just in case. And then when it happened, he came out there and performed extremely well. But if he goes to the Miami Dolphins, it's not going to work. I just don't, they don't have anything. Their offensive line is awful. I mean, they might even trade Devin Achan. Like they have gotten rid of wide receivers. Tyreek Hill's not there anymore. They might even trade Waddle. I mean, it's just a bad franchise right now. So I would like to see Malik Willis land in a place where I think he could actually maximize his talent. So that would be I would love to see it if he did. Maybe even Arizona could work out for him. Pittsburgh possibly, but do not go to the Miami Dolphins or Cleveland Browns, dude. It will not go well for you.
Yeah. One thing that I'm going to be really fascinated, and this might be a love to see it for whoever gets this player, but I hate to see it for the San Francisco 49ers, is if the Niners have to cut ties with Trent Williams,
Yeah.
right? There's that big cap hit. They've got a lot of stuff they've got to figure out here. Is he going to be a cap casualty? And, you don't want to let that guy go, but you're also looking at the age cliff. When is it going to come? I think a team would look at that and go, I need to stabilize the left tackle position right now. whoever gets him is going to be ecstatic, but that's a one that I would hate to see for the Niners if you end up having to move on from him, but love to see it for whoever got a chance to pick up a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I'm going to love to see where these elite pass rushers end up, because we saw this with Micah Parsons last year. That is the position. So quarterback is the one position that can completely change a franchise. I think pass rusher is kind of the same. If you get one guy who is super dominant, Trey Hendrickson, Max Crosby, I think Crosby's even on another level from Hendrickson. I think Crosby is like top 5 in the league at that
Easily.
position. Where he goes
Khalil Mack.
shapes whatever. I mean, Mac is still good, but I think where Max Crosby lands, if they trade him, will completely reshape whatever division that they're in. I am very interested to see where that goes.
For sure. I completely agree. He is the game changer, right? Those guys, and you want the quarterback that can lead you down the game and win it at the end. Those edge rushers are equal on the other side that can call game, right? Sack on the 3rd and long, sack on the 4th down, ball game's over. We're all heading to the locker room celebrating the W. Those dudes are such a premium position. I think there's 31 other teams that could look and go, he makes our team better right now. And when you have that kind of leverage, I don't know if the Raiders will move on from him or not, but that is what I think you're dead on at that point there.
In terms of hate to see it, the top of the free agent class, it's just not good.
It's not great.
So many flawed players. But here's what I love about that is sometimes when you're forced to be a little innovative or a little bit crafty, you do better. And I think the Vikings last year could have used that. I think the blank check was, I'm going to walk into the store. Oh, I can afford everything. So I'm going to get a bunch of stuff that's at the highest price that maybe was not really actually a good deal, or was not, the most well crafted at the moment, where if you're forced to look much closer under a microscope, I think you could see the value in some guys that maybe you would have overlooked before. So I kind of am loving to see them put in a position where they really got to think about this to make better decisions that will not hurt them down the road.
Yeah, the other thing that's going to be really interesting is the restricted free agents, right? So getting in the weeds here a little bit. So if you only have 3 accrued seasons, usually this happens for undrafted guys,
Yeah.
and you hit free agency, you can have tenders put on you, right? You hear the original round tender, the second round tender, all of those things. Well, the tender number has gotten so high that I think last year it was 12 to 15% of restricted free agents got tendered. I think that's going to be even lower now. We're going to see like maybe 10 or 11%. And so you're going to have this group of guys hit the market that are going to be proven players, 3rd-year players, know you're going to make the roster and be development, whether it's special teams or a depth piece, but they're all going to hit free agency. And so you're going to have this whole nother wave of people that really haven't done a lot of work on a restricted free agent, because you just kind of assume, well, he's going back to their team. And all the meetings that I sat in, there used to be this stigma of, well, if you're a restricted free agent and your team doesn't tender you, like, ooh,
Right.
what's wrong with you? Like, why doesn't your team want you back? Like, did you do something wrong? And it kind of the bottom drops out on these guys. It's completely opposite now. Teams are looking at the restricted free agents going, bargain, right? Bargain. They're not tendering, so his floor is not above 3.5, or his ceiling's not above 3.5, but we can get a really proven player on our team for 2 or 2.25 or 1.75, right? So that's going to be really interesting to watch some of these restricted free agents that are hitting the market and what that looks like for this class.
And, in the past, I really haven't looked closely at RFAs. I've just been like, oh, he's an RFA. Okay, that guy's not really available, because I'm assuming, like you said, either they'll just pick it up if they like him, or if they don't, then he's not worth looking at to begin with. But I think I need to change the approach a little bit to making some of the free agent lists. All right, one last thing. Okay, I need 2 things from you. I need the prediction for who's going to be the quarterback.
Gosh.
After it happens, we'll talk again, I'm sure. But
Yes.
we need the prediction. And I also want you to tell me what team is going to be the absolute dumbest in free agency. Like, what team, we know what team it was last year. But what team is going to just go crazy and make a ton of mistakes and just go all wild in free agency and screw everything up?
Man, I'm going to go starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings is going to be Kyler Murray. I think I'm gonna plant the flag on that one. And my hope is that they just cut him and then you can get him with a nice offset contract, much like they did with Russell Wilson. The team that I think is going to go crazy and overspend in free agency is going to be the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, okay.
I think the Miami Dolphins, I'm not sure how much cap space they necessarily have, but you've got a lot of moving pieces and you want to win right now. You want to make a statement with the new GM, new head coach, new everything. Those are usually the teams you got to look at going, what are we going to do? Like how much are we going to go? What's the splash that you're going to make that signing that is 2 million or 5 million over market value that everyone's going, whoa, that guy's worth what? I think that might be the Miami Dolphins.
I think that's a fairly good prediction. And even if they don't have a lot of cap space right now, what they've done is open it up for the future so they can
Right.
always schedule those contracts later. I've got the two most obvious teams that haven't done this in a while, but I think they will. Number one is the Dallas Cowboys. I think that there's been a lot of bullying of Jerry, and
Yeah.
there's been a lot of pushing him to spend his money, and he's going to go cash over cap like crazy for the first time in a long time. And I'm also going to say that the Raiders, they're drafting number one. They know they're going to have the rookie quarterback contract advantage. I think they're going to go out and they're going to try to spend as much as they possibly can to get quickly back into reasonable contention. I still think it's a multi-year project, but they can never really stay patient. And I think that Mark Davis is going to open up the purse strings and sign a bunch of players and try to just get back to being like a 500 football team.
A team to keep an eye out for too is the Buffalo Bills because
Oh,
they have to
sure.
spend a lot of cash. So we're reaching the 3-year spend here. So again, into the weeds a
Yeah.
little bit here.
Yeah.
Every 3 years, each NFL team has to spend a certain amount of cash or else they get dinged from the league. Buffalo has to spend a lot of cash,
Mm.
right? And so when you have to spend a lot of cash, you're kind of forced to make decisions that you don't necessarily want to make so you don't get dinged from the league. So that's another team to keep an eye out for. Vikings they're good on their cash spend, right? But there's a few teams out there that you're looking going, okay, and the Cowboys also are one of those teams that need a cash spend as well. So you pair those two things together, that's where you can see some mistakes being made, not out of choice, but out of necessity sometimes.
So I saw the other day that Joe Brady brought up the challenges around Josh Allen's contract. And I think you've only been the coach for like 3 weeks and you already screwed up. Why would you ever mention if you are the coach? See, there's so many little details to this. I personally think that a general manager is well within his bounds to publicly discuss anyone's contract anytime, anywhere he wants to.
100%. General manager and cap guy.
Yep.
You two can
Yep.
say whatever you want at any time.
And of course, the owner, because they're the ones writing the checks.
Writing the checks.
So if Jerry Jones says, "Man, I'm tired of paying
My
Dak so
wife
much
loves
money,"
me, by the way. She's brought me down
oh
this.
wow, that's very nice. We've been
She's
talking
awesome.
football for a long time. So like I think that's totally in bounds. And if you're a player, you're like, well, that's the guy who's writing me the millions, and if he says something publicly, that's fine. I think if you're a head coach, you need to stay out of that unless you're the head coach / GM and then you get cornered into it either way. I don't think you should ever be the guy talking about the cap situation or the players' contracts because you're the one that has to have the direct connection with those players every single day inside the locker room. And if they go in there and feel like, oh, you think I'm overpaid? Oh, you think I'm the problem for why we didn't draft, Luther Burden the third? Like, what do we, like you think I'm the issue? I think it just causes uncomfortable stuff with them. And I think that this is where KOC is masterful dealing with players. With the Jefferson stuff, Daniil Hunter, he would always come out and just be like, love that guy. We'll see what happens. Love
Yep.
if it would work out. He knew that you should never go there. And it's like, man, Joe Brady, you've only been the coach for a few weeks and already you make a kind of a blunder like that.
Yeah, I agree. Coaches coach from the front office gives them what you need. Like you have input and you can pound the table for someone behind the scenes, but it's always better to keep the separation of church and state,
Yes.
right? On that piece there of, hey, I love you, man. I want you back, but I ultimately don't have the pen and I don't have to make the math. So yeah, I agree. You got to make sure you stay in your lane as a coach so that you can keep the player himself happy.
Anyway,
Let the agent deal with the front office.
Right. I just thought, like, why would you do that? Why would you bring up, just say, we're going to do everything we can to make the roster great around Josh Allen, period. You don't have to say anything else.
Done. Next question.
Right. Sometimes it's easier than they make it. Anyway, well, we'll get together again soon when the Vikings have a quarterback. We'll see if it's Kyler Murray. See, I was pounding the table for Murray. And then in Indy, I let people convince me it's going to be Derek Carr. Then I come back and I'm like, I think it's Kyler Murray. But then other people are saying it's going to be Geno. No one knows. So
if it's Geno, I might quit. I don't know. I don't know if I can watch someone throw the football to the other team. He had 17 interceptions last year. 17.
It's
And he
41
didn't
over the last 3 years.
Yeah, what a 34 QBR rating or something ridiculous like that. Like I can't do that. I just can't. I'm sorry. I can't.
Okay, well, we'll keep that in mind when we renegotiate for next year. This seems like a ploy from an agent trying to be like, I'll quit. I'll quit.
Hey,
I won't come back to Purple Insider.
our CBA doesn't have our holdouts. I still have holdouts in my CBA.
Yeah. Jeremiah, thank you for all of your time, my friend. It's great catching up.
Absolutely. Football.